working that?
Yes.
Yeah, we're good. There it is. We're up now. Hey! It only takes
we'll
Steve 3 tries to get it right.
I'm telling you, this YouTube studio stuff is now from beta to alpha, and they got rid of the classical one, the classic version. And so now they prescriptively force you to go through this whole rigmarole every time you want to have a stream. And I'm telling you,
YouTube studio better than he does.
Why doesn't she? Yeah, she could do it. She could produce.
I do my own show. I'm learning. I'm getting better. We got something special today, but that's for later. How are you? We have a guest.
We got something special now. Look who we got here.
Hi.
Hi, Dave.
How you doing?
Intuitive. It's not easy. We'll get it down though. But anyways, good morning.
Well, it's a sad day where Steve has been doing this for like a number of years, but now I know the.
Good. Oh, I didn't see you here. Hello.
Hello.
Hey,
we turn this into a kid's show.
Yeah. Hi. I see.
Do you see a clue?
We're really glad to be back here. Let's have some fun. It's Saturday morning.
Yes.
Is it Saturday morning or is it Monday morning or is it?
It's Monday morning now. That quarantine's got you confused.
Yeah.
No,
today
never
would be
too
a
early
brandy
for
morning.
tequila.
Yeah, never tequila on Mondays, dude. That's a Friday night thing.
No, it's never too early for tequila. Tequila's a great start to drink in the morning.
Oh man, no. I mean, tequila and I don't get along very well. I'm not a big tequila fan, but
it's a great Monday morning. Let's have tequila and talk about politics. Woohoo!
I got coffee, so that's gonna have to work for me this morning. But as you guys can see,
for the record, that's what's in here.
Is that you got tequila in there?
No, it's coffee.
Okay. Gonna say, hey, if you want to drink through this, it's fine. You might need to. I mean, I get it totally.
Hey, Christy Santiago's here. Hi, Christy.
Oh,
hi, Christy.
Christy Santiago is our favorite humanist. David, I think you know her actually.
I believe I do.
Yeah. She's one of our favorite humanists of all time. And we also have a super chat this morning, and then we'll get into this.
Helios57545 says, good to hear that Steve not being able to start a stream in one go was not something limited to when I was on, but is a consistent occurrence.
It's pretty well a consistent occurrence, yeah. I don't know. I tell you, you think you get it down and you think you're all ready to go. Like I had gut sick Gibbon on the other day, the primatologist.
She's great.
I got to tell you, it was just the beginning was this one big cluster. I couldn't figure it out, and I finally did. But you would think after 1,000 episodes, I would get us down in art form, but it's never going to happen, man. Never going to happen.
Funnily enough, the episode that Helios was on where Steve was having so much trouble, my mom was watching. And my mom was like, Steve, what are you doing?
It's part of the charm, I guess, right?
Josiah Hansen for 2 says, $2 for the peasant community. Pheasant community? That says pheasant.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
But anyways,
all right, let's get started.
Let's get started on this. So we got David Silverman. He's the managing director of the Conru Foundation, former atheist activist, but still firebrand activist, as I found, because he still has a website, Firebrand for Good, which is atheist activism. And I brought Dave back on.
Linked in the chat
and the video description. And I brought him back on for kind of a very specific reason. We kind of talked about what we wanted to discuss. And one of the things he brought up was actually a very popular thing right now, and that's atheism and politics and social justice.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you guys remember a long time ago,
yes,
I have actually said that a lot of the atheist activism is directly involved with changing political schemes, and demographics and voting power, normalizing the word atheism and all this stuff to get, religiosity out of our school system, get younger generation out of the school system, basically have a more of a secular system, which, we should have. Obviously, I'm a secularist and I do support that wholeheartedly. And I got a lot of flack for that. A lot of people were like, well, that's conspiratorial, that, atheists are doing this for political reasons. And I'm like, well, no, go read Dave's book, Finding God. Go read Smith's book, Case Against God.
Go read their website.
Yeah, and this was so normative to me, but I had a lot of pushback on this thing. People say that I was a conspiracy nut by thinking that atheist activists are doing a lot of it for political reasons. And I'm like, well, no, but I that's a utility argument why they're doing it, but that's not a conspiracy thing. So I got Dave in here. I thought it would be a great kind of to talk about it from a person who started a lot of this way back when you wrote Fighting God. All right. So Dave, explain to us that portion of your activism, because
Please
I know
tell us how Steve is in fact a conspiracy nut.
Okay, so when you say for political aspirations, can you be specific?
Yeah, I'll jump into that. Essentially, being able to get an atheist in a political position, period, in the United States, as in the United States, it's very uncommon for an atheist to even be able to hold any kind of office.
Right.
Well, that was a symptom of success. That was one of the things that we were aiming for, but that wasn't the objective of the thing. That was a symptom of success. The amount of atheists in Congress was a barometer. So we all wanted to have atheists in Congress, not because we wanted to have atheists up there to push our agenda so much as it was a symptom of our success, a barometer of how well we were doing. So
a more
that
secular,
was,
more accepted.
Yeah, we wanted normalcy. It was about normalcy. It was about normalization.
Normalization of the word
Jews are
atheism,
normal, so they were in Congress, and we wanted to be in Congress too. But it wasn't. It wasn't so we could. I can't speak for everybody. I know there are exceptions to this rule, by the way, but it wasn't my opinion. It wasn't my objective to have atheists in Congress as an endpoint, as a goal. It was always just a symptom of our success, a barometer of how well we were doing.
And would you say though that
is
because? Yeah, absolutely. But would you say that's because if you had more atheists in Congress, it would maintain more of a secular type situation, where we have a lot of imposition of religiosity into the school system. Even in the government, there's a lot of religiosity. Most of it, I think, is a lot of feigned. Like, for example, when you have 12 people praying over Trump, I'm thinking to myself, this is
well,
staged,
when Trump has a like priest or a pastor advisor in his group, then and that's only one religion, that becomes an issue, because the position of power that the president of the United States holds should not be being influenced by a singular religion, or probably any.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. That's all separation of church and state stuff. Yes, it was something that, I mean, certainly if we have political power, we can hold on to political power. Holding on to political power is a hell of a lot easier than gaining political power, right? So yeah, I mean, if we had people in Congress, they would be there as a tool to help us hold on to political power. And sure, hopefully they would replace the people who are trying to take away our political power and trying to take away our intellectual freedoms. So yeah, that was a part of it. But again, it was just a barometer.
So it would be like a marker of progress. So if you have somebody on the board or on this or on that, it would be like, okay, so people are starting to get used to the idea that atheists are around, and being an atheist is no longer a no, we're not voting for this person because of their religious affiliation.
You know, when there were 2 Reason rallies, and at the first Reason rally, we had Congressman Pete Stark, who was a former congressman at the time, send in a video. The most he would do, he would call himself an unbeliever, and he would, the most we could get for Reason Rally 1 was one thing from one congressman. At Reason Rally 2, which was substantially less successful in most measurements, we had 2 seated Congress people on the stage. One of whom was Tulsi Gabbard, who ran for president. So I bring this in because neither of the people who spoke to us were atheists. Tulsi Gabbard is not an atheist. And I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the other person who came, but also a seated congressman who spoke and called us atheists by name. And, you know, that's the same thing. As far as I'm concerned, that's the same thing. Getting non-atheists to come to an atheist event and say, hello, atheists, we like you, I like you, is right in the same field as having an atheist in Congress who's already on our side. And so I just wanted to show that I brought that up.
Progress.
And it's how we mark progress. It's how we see progress.
What would
Yeah.
so what would happen if
Call it
instead of-
experience points until you level up, and then experience points until you level up.
What would be let's say there was more atheists in Congress, and for the sake of this argument, I'm going to use the way you use atheist. We'll keep it internal with you. So let's say you have people that are atheists, they don't believe in God, and they are in Congress now. What would you expect the landscape to change? What would be some of the fundamental things that you would say, okay, because this happens, we would expect this kind of result?
Well, one of the things that we don't have right now in Congress is people standing up and saying, this affects people like me. You know, if something is anti-Semitic,
Right.
if there's an anti-Semitic law, you get Jewish congressmen to go up there, Jewish congresspeople to go up there and say, hey, I'm a face on this word here. If you get an anti-gay, the anti-gay marriage bills that were before the Supreme Court ruling, that gay congressman talking about it, it put a face to it. It helps to normalize. So I think if we were talking about a congressman who was about to say, hey, you know what? This bill would take my money and teach my kids that I'm wrong, right? That's what this bill would do.
Right.
It would take my tax money and it would teach my kid in public school that I'm wrong. That's a different perspective than we have right now in Congress. Nobody is saying that in Congress. They're saying it if it's Jewish. They're saying it if it's gay. They're saying it if it's Catholic. But they're not saying it if it's atheist. They're saying, hey, I've got atheists. There are some people like Tulsi Gabbard who say, hey, I've got atheists in my in my constituency, and they need protection, and I'm here to represent them too. That's great. Thank you, Congressman Gabbard. Or is she a senator? I don't know. But
I honestly don't know.
Okay,
I'm
good. I'm glad you didn't know too, because I blanked on that, but that's not the point. My point is that her supporting us as atheists is great. However, it is not the same as her going to Congress and saying, I am an atheist, and this is downtrodden me. This is pushing down my kids. This is making my kids hear that I'm bad or wrong in public school. You want my kids to go to school and learn about hell, blah, blah. And so you have that perspective. And I think that's really needed. I think we really need somebody to stand in front of President Trump as an outed atheist and say, look, this is going to be a bad thing. If we try to bail out religion, this is why it's going to be unfair to atheists like me. Because you know the bailout of religion is coming soon. You know the church bailout is coming soon.
Well, there actually there's a payment program, something or other, which they have actually been talking about that. The way they're arguing, if I'm not mistaken, is that certain clergy are paid positions, and they're, because of the situations going around the world with CV-19, they're thinking about subsidizing this, right? They're unemployment and paying for the clergy. Now, I have an issue with that, clearly, obviously, because I don't think that is a necessary thing that if you're working for a church, a nonprofit organization, why would you get a bailout for that? But as you said, there's two main things in religion encroaching on the school system. One, you're right, these notions of hell and all this other stuff in the school system, but I don't see that an awful lot, maybe in the Bible Belt, but the bigger thing is like the creationism aspect, right? They want to teach the controversy of evolution, right? And
I think,
wait a minute, there is no controversy.
A good example, it wouldn't, I don't know how much it would apply to America, but up in Canada, we have a couple of problems with things like that. Like, the Catholic schools here get government funding. So they get private funding, and they get, and for being a church, they don't get taxed, et cetera, as schools. And they are schools, and they have districts. And they have, in the lower grades, they have a district just like public schools. So realistically, they should be getting taxed if they're going to be schools and follow proper curriculum, which for the most part they do. There's like a couple of additional like mandatory religion class throughout, et cetera, for the most part they do follow it, but it's not that hard for that to shift if there ever is a problem in the future. And on top of it, they should be getting taxed or not getting government money. One of the two. You don't get both, right?
Well, one of the two. And I don't really have, honestly, I don't have too much of a problem. I don't have too much of a problem with a church employee going on unemployment. But what we're going to be
Sure,
talking about is a bailout of the churches. The churches are making way less money, and they're going to try and claim, that they're performing a service for the community. And
talking
and we're
about a
going
business versus an individual, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
Right,
I
right,
kind
right.
of do have a
I mean,
problem with the whole unemployment for church, but I wouldn't like die on
It's
that
because
hill.
they're an
Bailout.
employee. It's because it's a job, right? So, like, if I
It is
work
a
at a
job.
church and I'm a janitor,
Okay, fair enough.
I should
I'll
absolutely
concede that
get.
point. I'll acquiesce in that.
exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah. But the bailout,
but
but the bailout for it, like if you like the Princess, like these cruise lines are having a bailout, right? They like we have to
That
exist.
should not be.
We need a bailout, right?
Right.
GE, remember when GE had a bailout back when General Electric had this massive bailout,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I don't see why that's something critical that a church would have to have.
Well, because the church will say that it's a critical industry. The church will say that it's a nonprofit industry,
Yes.
that it serves the public. And,
No.
it will say that it serves the public better than, beyond its community of people who it serves, which of course is a lie. It will say things like, outreach is charity, when outreach is really just recruitment.
Preaching.
Yeah. And so they're all of their education, all of their information, it's all recruitment. And they use this argument to claim and retain nonprofit status. And, I was just thinking, what they're going to do is they're going to say, it's going to be really interesting to watch how religion works within the confines of postmodernism. And the reason I bring up postmodernism is the relative truth of it all. The concept of the concept that everybody is right in their own way, that nobody can be wrong. And if I'm thinking that, I'm looking at the church whose truth is different from the rest of our truth. They say, I would assume that according to postmodernism, religion is all true because it says it's all true. If that's the case, then they'll be using postmodernism as, isn't that interesting? They might use postmodernism as a way to get into the schools. What?
I'm not a postmodernist fan. The whole postmodernist.
Oh, neither am I.
It's just absurd.
Postmodernism is complete bullshit. Truth is real, reality is real, and people can be wrong, even if it's ancient wisdom, Eepoo. It can be totally fucking wrong, and it usually is. Get over it. The world is not your participation trophy, and that's all postmodernism is. It's all a participation trophy.
Exactly. Postmodernism has this weird position, and again, I'm not condemning any type of religion. I'm really not by saying this, but postmodernism does have the stance that there's all these relative truths, and it's like, how is it affecting you? This intersectionality that's just, which to me is this persecution versus privilege. Is all it basically is, but it is this position of, hey, well, let's look at this from this standpoint. And they actually have they have various standpoints. They say from this standpoint, it's true. And it's like, well, no, it doesn't really work that way. Like, I believe
let's change the word true to mean something different and then say that everything's true.
Yeah, because it's
just like
your perspective.
Just like white fragility. We could just change the name of racism and then say everybody's a racist. So we could just take the same thing, change the definition of true, and then everybody's right, and then everybody gets a participation trophy because nobody is wrong.
And there's the segue into social justice.
No, not yet. Not yet. Because I'll give you an example. The other
Steve's
day,
like, no, we're going too fast.
I was demonstrated to be wrong on something. Okay, so mark this on your calendars, write it down, timestamp this, because I was demonstrated to be wrong. It has happened infrequently, right?
Infrequently.
Really? What's it like, Steve? Tell me about that.
Oh man, okay, look at I got PTSD over this. Okay, so let me get out.
No, nobody can ever give you criticism. You have PTSD.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Continue this, man. Stop it. So I all my life I've thought I drink coffee.
I like you, Cheshire.
And I
say again.
Yo, what up? It's me, your boy.
Wait, I always thought that black coffee was black. Come to find out by Sweet Heathen, who has informed me, and she is correct. Coffee is not black. It is at most a dark brown. I have researched this. She's right on this. Hashtag Sweet Heathen was right. Hashtag
Wait, did
Steve
you
T
think
was
coffee was
wrong.
actually the color black?
Yes, all
Is
my
that
life
what
I
you're
thought
telling
it was actually black. It looks black, but it's a dark brown. I've learned something. I've grown as a human being. My life is complete
This
now.
is your
50 years
big
of age.
lesson.
Hey, that's what you get, Rand. Right? Okay. But yeah, but my truth was coffee's black, right? But come to find out, not the case.
My truth. It's my truth
truth.
that
Right.
coffee
My
is
truth.
black.
The truth.
Yeah, exactly. And what's funny is she's like, Steve, don't mess with a graphic design artist. I'm like, yeah, exactly. Colors.
Yeah,
right?
okay, all you would have to do, if you ever really wanted to confirm this, all you would need to do is take a picture with like a high quality camera of your cup of coffee in solid lighting, so it's not like super shadowed. Drop it into any kind of art program and color pick it, and then look where it is on the color wheel.
Well, you live and learn, right?
Very few things are actually black, especially anything that's actually natural. Very few things are like the color black. So it's like, it's not... That's why, like, it's a thing in art that if you're painting... Yeah, exactly. If you're painting, you almost never paint anything black, because then you have nowhere to go with your shading, unless you're making it the darkest possible shadow that you could be doing.
But they do have this real dark... They have this actual paint that's black. It's so black that it doesn't reflect any light.
Yes, like I said, there's very few naturally occurring things.
Empty space, right?
But you know what? Coffee still tastes the same regardless of color.
Would empty space have a color?
Color racist there, okay? No color racism. Coffee racism. But anyways, yeah. So I was incorrect about that. Congrats to Sweet Heathen for finally showing that I was wrong all these years. She gets a cookie. Okay, and now I have to ban her and never talk to her again. Damn it, it sucks.
Right.
But
I mean, to be fair, if that were the case, I would be out of here like crazy. I would never be allowed back in this chat.
Do you ever I mean, it boggles me that it is now bad to be proven wrong. It's now evil to be proven wrong. That somebody who proves you wrong has done a crime to you and has assaulted you. And it doesn't matter anymore if they prove you wrong. It's insane. And I don't want to go back to what happened to me, but let's just say that, I mean, there's a certain segment of the population that just will not listen, that just wants to believe the bad, the worst. And that's the vogue. That's the virtual. That's the virtue signaling. So that you take away their virtue signal if they're not enraged enough, and that means you take away their vehicle to gain popularity. So people at this point are abhorrent. They abhor the information. How in the world can you abhor information? Well, this is
I think a lot of it is because of stature. A lot of them. Because you're a very prominent person in the community. I'm relatively somewhat known. Cheshire is getting known. You're actually a public figure, but we're public people. I'm not a public figure, but I'm in the public. And so when you're out there, right? Well, you got to start this bottom rung there, Chess. You got to work for it. Okay?
Is that a short joke?
you got to climb. That. But anyways, so
I need a ladder to reach the next rung of the ladder.
you need a stepping stool. They may not remember, but she's like 4'11", dude. She's a munchkin. She's like a hobgoblin.
4'10" and a half.
All I remember is the daddy issues.
She's a white. She's a white girl with daddy issues. That's what anybody even knows her for, exactly.
Didn't you know all white women have daddy issues?
I guess it's a second fundamental DNA thing. News to me, right? But yeah.
Hey, listen, there are specific men that like daddy issues. What do you mean?
I don't judge, but
it's a long con.
People don't want to be wrong, right? Because if you're in the public eye and you make a mistake, people go, "Oh well, let's let this person. They were wrong." But the persons that are wrong, then they say, look, I'm going to correct my shit. I'm going to say, look, I'm going to fix what I was wrong about. Those are the people you should be trusting because they're going to correct when they've messed up. It's that person that doubles down, triples down, quadruples down. Those are the people you can't ever trust because they're never going to change their positions. Right?
And-
There is
you-
something
and
to
you
be
don't-
said for if you can prove, like, let's say you've got somebody who's like super, this is the way it is, this is always the way it is, and they have like a pretty solid stance and they're pretty well known for that stance. If you prove that stance wrong, it, one, knocks them down a rung as far as they're concerned, and two, brings
Sure.
you some points up a lot because you've just managed to prove this big figurehead
Yeah, it's called
wrong
punching
in
up.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dave.
It's and of course the popularity part is there too. I mean, even if you're not proving them wrong, the entire, I mean, the entire accusation thing is the same thing. You're proven wrong. You step on somebody high to elevate yourself. It's really insidious. The deeper and deeper you go into postmodern thought, the deeper you go into what has become the social justice movement, the more you see how insidious and how toxic it is, how internally toxic it is, how it fights against information.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be eternally wrong. I mean, Steve, you said something before. You said if you meet somebody who won't change his opinion, you know that that doubles down. You know he's not going to change his opinion. Well, that's the other side of it. That, Steve, is you know he's never changed his opinion before. Okay, if somebody keeps doubling down, you have no idea on how good those opinions are in the first place.
Correct.
I judge that.
Particularly if they don't listen. Particularly
Absolutely.
if there's somebody who does not listen or strawmans you
The more
constantly.
they slam their fist and say, I'm right, without backing their shit up, the more you know they have nothing. And that's the thing. That's where it
totally
keeps
agree.
going back to participation trophies in my mind. Because none of these people are putting in, none. I'm making a generalization. A lot of postmodern feminists don't put in any work at all into their opinions. They look at the mantras, they see the headlines, they repeat them, they become enraged, they have this
They read
rage,
a blog
and
once.
around that rage, because that rage becomes a channel for them to get popularity by stepping on other people, by judging them and virtue signaling on top of them. So you've got people who have no ability or have no skill or interest in learning, being able to judge other people incessantly and never forgiving. So they're getting a push up, as if they had done the work, but they haven't. Which is why as soon as you talk to them, as soon as you try and challenge them, as soon as you challenge even their mantras, which are so on the surface wrong, like the patriarchy or systemic racism or anything like that, they just insult you and throw shit at you because they have no data to back their shit up, because they haven't done the research, because this is a society of participation trophies where truth is relative, which means you can just make your shit up, which means people are really, really firmly believing things that are wrong based on no data, which is why the outrage is huge, and which is why the outrage is false, and which is why the polarization is unnecessary, which is why most modernism sucks.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny you mentioned
That was a good rant.
By the way, yeah, I'm on board with that
Yes.
because it's amazing. I have a blog that I've done for years. It's upon epistemology and philosophy and logic. And logic is objective. It's math. All right. You can't play games with logic. Either your logic is right or it's wrong. There's no middle ground to be had. And so I get shit on a lot. And people use my name. My name is in a video every day. Literally, somebody will take my name, put in a video that has nothing to do with even what they're talking about. Just be like, Steve McRae exposed. Steve McRae kicks puppies. It doesn't matter. My name has power to give them views, and I'm okay with that, right? I mean, it means that I'm actually moving up that rung. But I want to show you something that's very interesting. Dave, I just sent you something. Can you put that on screen? Dave, by the way, have you seen this before, Dave? Because I showed it to Chess yesterday.
No, I haven't. This is
okay.
I'm confused by this list, but I'm assuming we'll go over
and that's
this.
why we're going to talk about
okay, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
So if you could show this to Dave here. And by the way, I'm honored to be on this list in some regards, and there's some people on here I cannot stand. But this is what I'm saying about what Dave was saying about getting a leg up by virtue signaling, right? I've worked very hard to have my own arguments, my own positions, whether they're right, wrong, or different. Makes really no difference as far as
I just copy what Steve says and says it's. I do two things. I have two rules: copy what Steve say and just say he's wrong, and then go and find. I have a rule of the universe: go find Keon and do the opposite. There's a guy that's been trolling us for years at this point. He's got two main accounts. He's got one that's called Keon and one that's called Dark. If you ever don't know what is going on in a situation, go and find wherever that person is posting to and who they're trying to get in nice with, and do the opposite, because they are wrong every single time. Every time.
Like
if this person is ever on your side, you need to seriously reconsider your position and why it's your position.
So anyways, on this particular list here, this is a list of a supposed bigoted atheist. Now, first of all, people know I'm not atheist, and people know that I'm not bigoted. The maybe one name or two on this list I do probably consider maybe to be bigots. The rest, none of them. I may not even get along with some of these on this list. I know most of everybody on this list besides two people. I've never talked to Jacqueline Glenn, although I would like to, because I think there's some issues there. And Sam Harris I've never talked to, but I've talked to Lawrence Krauss, Armored Skeptic.
Wait, Richard Dawkins is on this list.
I haven't talked to Dawkins, Blair White, Sam Harris, and Jacqueline Glenn. I think everybody else on the list I know personally.
Wait, why is Blair White bigoted?
I don't know, and this is what I'm saying. This list.
She
I'm
says
so
that
confused.
Blair White is bigoted because she believes that cis women and trans women are different types of women and should not be, by default, given exactly the same rights like sporting events, etc. And so that
are we
makes her
still
a
going
TERF.
on that sporting events?
That
People
makes her-
think sporting
that makes
events
her
are
a TERF,
right?
That makes her a TERF. I'm on the list. I'm sure. I'm a serial rapist. Just ask anybody.
You and I guess, are just bigots. I'm not. Like I said, I'm not even an atheist. I'm certainly not
Oh,
bigoted.
I'm just a bigot? Oh, that's an improvement for me. If I'm
You're
just a
both.
bigot.
You're both.
How many of us are Nazis again?
But this is funny because this was somebody who I consider to be a friend that I'm blindsided by. I had no idea that why they would think this. They never asked me anything about it. I thought we were totally cool. And all of a sudden I'm on a list like with Dave Silverman, who I don't think is a bigot in any way, shape, or form. I don't think.
Who wants to be on a list with Dave Silverman? What the hell?
Now, yes, he's an atheist. If this is a list for atheists, sure, okay, he is. I'm not on
Not
that
even
list,
an
but
atheist.
you call David a bigot?
What
What the hell have you ever done, David, that makes you a bigot? I'm kind of curious. I don't know.
He just said that the patriarchy isn't a thing. Obviously, that's why he's doing it.
That makes me a misogynist. I don't think systemic racism is substantially holding back the black community. It may exist to some degree, but I think I don't think systemic racism is substantially holding back the black community. I don't think the SAT scores are racist. I don't think AP classes are racist.
What about institutional?
I'm sure there's more, but the problem is, I think the big problem is, I really strongly believe that all people are equal partners on this world and equal citizens in this country, and that we should speak honestly to each other and not let white guilt keep us quiet. So I think that makes me.
I'm on the same position with you. I do share a lot of your positions on that. I really, really honestly.
Yeah, I think
do.
there's definitely like conversations to be had, because like you can't have it sounds extreme to say, oh, the patriarchy is not a thing, or oh, systemic racism isn't a thing. But there's nuance to that actual position, and if you don't have the conversation, you're never going to be able to reach an. Right, because then you have to start like defining your terms, and then get to actually have a conversation.
When I wrote Fighting God, the first thing I did was define religion and define God, and my entire book is based off of those definitions. We have to define the problem here, and I'm very anti-racism. I'm very anti-homophobia. I'm very anti-bigotry in all directions at all times. And so if I see bigotry, I want to fight it and kill it. And when I look at our system, when I look at our government system, I see a system that's chock full of anti-racism policies, which are enforced dramatically, and fully enforced. I see anti-sexism policies, which are enforced. So if somebody can come to me and say, look, this is racist, like the crack cocaine law differential there, I think there's some validity to the racism in that. And I want that
there's
fixed.
like racist
That's
and
there's stuff that's. But that's not the systemic racism holding down the black people. That's not white oppression. And I'll just say this, and I really have to say this. I'm a Gen X white guy, okay? I'm 53 years old. I was in AT&T, I was in Bell Labs, and I was an American Atheist. And in all three jobs, I was a champion for feminism. I was a champion for equality. I've been a champion for diversity. And for somebody to, and I was I'm proud of the fact that I was part of the force that lifted the glass ceiling. I was part of the force that lifted people of color into the workforce. And now for somebody to come to me and say, hey, you fucker, you've been oppressing us all this time. Get out of the way. Sit down. Shut up.
Because you're a white.
We're here now. We're in charge. That's just not a thing. I lifted that stuff up to give y'all, to help. We all lifted up to give y'all an equal place. Equal place. You're not better. You're not better. You're equal. And you get to compete now. You get to compete with numbers. And the postmodernist bullshit is gone. You have to actually earn your numbers now. You can fail. You can actually fail. And when you fail, it's not racism or sexism. Maybe you're just not performing. And for somebody to come to me as an white guy, I'm sorry?
They rely on the shoulders of other people. They rely on the people that have gotten their you know, where they're at. And then, like you said, I don't think they have anything to offer on their own, and they just virtue signal to maintain it. Because
so many people.
I just don't understand.
I know so many fantastic, strong, brilliant women and people of color who would look at this concept of you know, pushing white guys aside because we're all racist and we're all sexist and
we're wrong by default. I'm 50 Gen X, just like you. We're wrong by default. Yeah, you know, I love when people say, "Okay, boomer." They don't know the difference between boomer and Gen X, but it's like, and I get it's supposed to be a pejorative, but I just think it's kind of stupid. But whatever.
I think it's hilarious.
We're wrong by fiat merely because we are not in that group. Even though I'm like you, I started in the community with a transgender group that's how I got involved in YouTube. I was supporting transgender rights. Gay rights. Yeah. I left the Mormon church because I didn't like the fact they were promoting.
Well, that'll teach you two to be helpful to other people.
Right. They were promoting. They were actively fighting against gay marriage in California in 2008 with Prop 8. I thought that was inappropriate for a church to get involved with that. Right. And yet people are, you know, people have called me transphobic. They've called us, you know, Nazis. They've called us every pejorative in the book. And yet none of them applies. And by any stretch of imagination, anybody who's watched me for 8 years knows that, just like you, I am the antithesis of a bigot. I am the one that says we need to be accepting. We need to stop, having institutionalized racism and stop treating people different because of skin color or sexual orientation. That's not what a bigot would say. This is not what a racist would do.
No, but that includes coddling. You know, it is out of respect. I speak out of respect to my partners. Black people, white people, yellow people, red people, we're all partners. We're all equal citizens here. But that means we're calling each other on our shit. Okay? I have partners. I have lots of partners. And when some of my partners, and sometimes I'm full of shit. Sometimes I'm full of shit. And sometimes I need somebody to say, hey, Dave, you're full of shit. And we have lots of partners in this world.
I've done that for years with you,
and sometimes they're full of shit. And sometimes they're full of shit and they say, oh, you can challenge me on my shit because you're the wrong color or you're the wrong sex. No, I can. And I will. And if you're full of shit, we all should, because you have to have numbers in order to make your claims. If you're going to sit there and call me a racist, you're going to back your shit up. And you're going to define that term.
But people don't know.
575 for Steve, I'm trying to get a super chat. Helios for 575 for 2 said share and like this so we can get more people in the live. That was from ages ago. It took me that long to get to it.
But people may know for years. Dave's Twitter account is in the video description. It's Mr. Atheist Pants. And by the way, I'm not kidding. I thought for the longest time it was Mr. Fancy Pants. And I was like, why do you have Mr. Fancy Pants? I was like, that's weird. And I still do to this day. Sometimes I try typing to him and I put in Mr. Fancy Pants and it's like, it's not coming up. But I've disagreed with Dave for a lot of years, but we've always had civil conversations. I've never seen him be bigoted or racist ever. He's always been civil to me. He'll say, hey, look, Steve, I think you're wrong. I say, like, Dave, you're full of shit. Okay, let's go have a drink. But he's never, in any time I've known him, exhibited any kind of propensity for racism or bigotry. Why would he be on this list? I don't understand this.
Because
nobody
they
on
have
this list is a bigot except for one
No.
person.
The reason I'm on this list,
and maybe atheism unstoppable, people can argue, but the rest, I don't even like some of these people on here. I can't stand them, but they're not bigots.
No, they're not bigots. But that's the accusation. All you have to do is call somebody a bigot, and then you don't have to listen to any of their words. The entire postmodern movement is based on straw man arguments. Don't like this guy. He has poopy heads. He's a bad guy. He's a poopy
head. That's a big argument around here. Steve's a big
poopy head.
Must be wrong.
So it doesn't matter how right I am. I'm a poopy head, or a bigot, or a racist, or a transphobe, or whatever. And so they don't listen. And it used to be a shame. It used to be shameful to use a straw man argument. It used to be something that people laughed at. When I was, and I don't want to speak for you, Steve, but I'm sure you'll jump in on this. When I was, young in the movement, straw man arguments were like what you made fun of.
Yeah, but now they're the norm.
If somebody says, "Don't listen to him, he's a bigot," that was like something that you would say. That's what the religious people would say. Don't listen to him, he's an atheist. Well, yeah, and sometimes the atheists are right. And that's why you don't use straw man arguments. That's why you don't use this weak shit. But again, this weak shit allows people to step on people they don't know, elevate themselves, and they don't have to do any work. They don't have to read. They don't have to learn. They don't have to consider. They just have to lockstep and follow the mantra. Postmodernism sucks.
Ask Chesh, what is your experience with this? Because for some reason, you are not a woman because you happen to agree with the white patriarchal system. Some people like me, because I am part of the patriarchy, I guess, which been unbeknownst to me, right? I mean, I was in retail for years. I had to work for HR.
The answer is
woman
that
because you have your own opinions.
Yeah, I'm not a real woman because I actually prefer to use accurate terms. So when a group of people were calling Steve a rape apologist, I went out and I made the argument and demonstrated how not only by that logic were they rape apologists, but also by real definitions, they were also all rape apologists for shaming and trying to silence victims because they didn't agree with them.
Yeah.
And that's how you win those kinds of arguments, by the way.
It's amazing how, as I've gone through the past couple of years, the accusations made me guilty, the lack of a lawsuit made me guilty, the presence of a lawsuit made me guilty, the dropping of the lawsuit made me guilty. Everything just reinforced all the guilt that everybody just knew that I was going on, and that it was just those facts that was needed. It's just such a lazy place. It's just such a lazy movement. And it really brings up idiocracy. It's not idiocracy, right? And in idiocracy, one of the things that, of course, the idiocracy was a comedy where a normal, intelligent guy goes to sleep and he wakes up in the future and all the stupid people have bred and all the smart people have not bred. And so he's the smartest man in the world now. And it's a really funny movie. Luke Wilson, yeah. But they thought what's bringing me to that movie is that it really seems like the postmodern movement, the progressive left, has forgotten how to think. They have either forgotten how to think or thinking itself has become so out of vogue that they just proudly decry it. They proudly say, "I'm not going to do it."
Why do they even need to think?
It's like, well, it's a self-righteous issue. They think that they're right, and it's so obvious that they're right, and that it's a moral imperative. Because if you're going to go talking about racism and say something is systemic, well, you can't be wrong because racism is so obviously a problem and an issue, and so wrong that how you make that argument, how you frame that argument, as long as it's too obvious. So it's a self-righteous crusade at this point, in that you're not. There's no point in having conversation with the pagans.
Yeah, but all these people have to do anymore is say, look, all they have to do is say, Dave did this, this, and this. He's a poopy head. He's a bigot. And therefore, all his arguments must be wrong. Now, again, I think some of his arguments are wrong, but not because he's a meanie, poopy head, racist bigot, right? I mean, this is what I'm saying. They throw these terms out there as a defeater because they don't want to have the discussion. They actually want
because they can't have the discussion because they haven't done the research.
I have had that issue so many times. There are prominent atheists out there that have shut down the communication with me because they haven't done their due diligence. They strawman me incessantly. My fans have told them, hey, look, you are strawmanning Steve. This is not a matter of
people who don't like Steve tell them that. Right. This isn't like, oh, Steve's fans go out. No, people who don't like Steve go and say, no, you've got this wrong.
I could literally say I'm a centrist, and people say, well, Steve's a Democrat. No, I'm not. I'm more of a centrist. Right? But they're like, no.
I mean, you're on this list of bigoted atheists, Mr. Agnostic.
They'll twist.
I don't know how I could be. I don't. I also have to say the other side of this. I mean, I want to be, how do I say this without sounding whiny? I'm not sounding whiny when I say this, okay? It's really fucking hurtful to put me on that list.
Yeah,
okay? It's really fucking hurtful. Right. I can be an asshole sometimes, okay? I can be wrong sometimes. I know.
I didn't want to hurt you.
My point is that you didn't fucking hurt me. But I mean, but I don't think anybody actually cares about what this does.
Right.
I don't think anybody actually cares about what this does to us.
This is somebody I considered a friend. This is a friend of mine who wrote this that I thought was a friend.
Do I know this person?
Yeah. I mean, it's they actually took down the blog this morning. I found out this was part of a blog, a full blog. That blog is no longer there. Okay, because I think people.
And it's something that I know.
I don't. Does he?
I don't. It's possible they've had conversations with Aaron before, so it is possible that you might have bumped
her
into.
name's Chrissy Hansen. It used to be Chris Hansen. She goes by Chrissy, I guess now. I didn't know that, but Christopher Hansen. I think she goes by either. I think
the artist formerly known as.
Yeah, but on Twitter it's Bible history skeptic, and it's
biblical history skeptic.
I'm glad it's nobody who knows. The reason I wanted to know is I wanted to know if it was somebody who knew me at all well.
I don't think.
I don't believe she does.
Oh, I would doubt that. I would doubt that.
But I'll tell you, it really fucking stings.
Yeah,
when people do this.
It should sting.
And
there's two main problems, right?
But I have lived a certain kind of life, and yeah, I've lived a bit of a dishonest life when it came to cheating on my wife, but I've never hurt anybody. I've lived a peaceful life. I've lived a life where I sleep well at night. I've never hurt a person. I've never committed assault. I've never raised a hand. I've never done anything to hurt anyone, and to be associated. And I have fought my entire life against bigotry.
Right.
I wrote a book about bigotry. Fighting God was about bigotry. And it was a fight against bigotry. I say over and over again, this is not about people. It's about religion. That's all I do. And to label me like this, I just want to say, it's not like I'm sitting there whining and crying and complaining, but goddamn, somebody got to think about that. Somebody got to think about all these people on this, because this is hurtful.
Well, there's two main problems with it, right? There's two main problems. One of them being that you're alienating people who have otherwise helped you, have helped you in the past, or will help you in the future. So you're making it so that nobody wants to help. Like the toxic part specifically of trans Twitter is so bad that it makes people not want to help with trans issues, because if they help not good enough or help in the wrong way, it's not helpful, and they just get slammed for it, even if they were one, trying to help, or two, if it actually even was helpful. It's just not helpful enough. So nobody's going to want to help you because you're shutting them down. And then secondly, the people who have helped you in the past might not want to help you in the future now, because I've spent my whole life fighting for you guys, and you're just going to completely throw me under the bus and be a complete dick to me. Well, I'm not going to help you in the future anymore, because it's just going to be a waste of my time. On the other hand, there's a whole other issue, and it's you're hurting your own argument. You're hurting your own movement.
Dave, I'll give you
by just in it. It's actually, to be honest, what I would probably compare this to is the incel movement. The incels are so bad, and they're so toxic to themselves that if one of them starts actually getting somewhere, they just rip them right the hell back down. And this, I would put them on that level, that same kind of groupthink, where it's well, we don't have to do any research because I have this one study from OkCupid. Okay, cool.
Yeah, Dave, I'll give you a perfect example. I had, again, as I said, I started on YouTube in a trans community, supporting trans rights with Nadia Yvette Chambers, who's still a prominent figure in the trans community. She was a mod for me for many, many years. I don't even she's not as I literally got rid of almost all my mods except for like 4 or 5 now. So other than that, she's a big fan of the show and stuff like that. But I had a trans friend on who actually made a video with me saying in the video, I'm an ally, right? I mean, this person knows that I support trans rights.
Oh yeah, that was the fuck essence of thought video.
but because
now you're on a list with essence of thought.
But because she has to virtue signal and now sees a mean poopy head, now I'm somehow no longer an ally. And I'm like, I've not done anything different, not changed any of my stance. I'm still just as much for trans rights as I was before, but because this person has to fit into with this particular group and shit on me because it's the cool thing to do.
The Olympics are a right.
It's ridiculous, and this is exactly what this is right here. This is somebody who I think is virtue signaling to shit on people that would usually be an ally. I mean, Lawrence Krauss, for God's sake. I mean, come on, come on, or who's let's see who even like I would throw this out there. Look, I'm no fan of Godless Engineer. I think he's a goddamn piece of shit, to be honest with you. But I've never seen him to be a bigot.
Tell us how you really feel, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like the guy, right? I mean, people know this, right?
Shocker! It's almost like he helped your ex-partner steal $60,000 on a channel from you or something.
The guy falsely accused me of fraud and tax evasion and helped my steal $60,000. But
all because he was mad that you were more specific in your terminology about what an engineer is.
What the term engineer, right? Exactly. And so, but you know what? But I'm still going to defend the guy and say there's no way Godless Engineer should be on this list. He is not in any way bigoted. So I don't understand this list.
Yeah, I don't know why he would be on this list.
Yeah,
you think if you're going to make a list.
Of God speaking.
Godless Engineer should not be on that list. In fact, let me go through that and tell you who I think.
Only 2 names on this list I think would be bigoted, and see if you can point them out, David.
David. I would think Atheism is Unstoppable might be considered.
There's definitely an argument to be had there, right?
Can we talk about that? Can we talk about him for a second?
By the way, I like AIU personally. He is a friend of mine. I think he gets. I know what he does. He's very hyperbolic. I watched your interview with him, by the way. It was good.
Yeah,
and perhaps
he done really well by me. And a whole bunch of people say, "Oh, Devin's a bigot. Devin's a racist. Devin's a racist," and I haven't seen anything.
Yeah, no,
that shows me that. Why do people say that about him?
That's why I said there's an argument to be had. I know he's hyperbolic.
And the only other one I could think of, on this list that might even be remotely considered racist is Sargon of Akkad.
No,
what did he say?
Hang on, I don't know if you could call Essence of Thought racist. Bigoted, maybe, but probably not racist.
What did he say that was bigoted?
If we're talking bigoted, then it's Essence of Thought and perhaps Atheism as a stop. Sargon of Akkad is not. He has very strong opinions, but he's not.
Yeah, I agree with you. Sargon's always been cool with me. I don't agree with a lot of the stuff he says per se, but I've
seen him be really fucking lazy about some of his political stuff. It's like lazy.
I don't think he makes.
Well, we can always be lazy. I mean, I've been lazy too, but bigoted's a big charge. So what makes you think that Atheism Unstoppable is bigoted, David?
I don't think he is. I see how I say he might be perceived that way.
Oh yeah. Bull's talking about why.
I don't think any of those people are bigoted. To be honest, I don't think a single one of them.
Yeah, the way Devon does this, Devon tries to skirt that line, so he has the people they'll perceive him that way, right? He is somebody out there that is walking that edge for a particular reason, and I think he does it to point out. There's problems with certain people's way of thinking, right? I think he does it softly.
Well, he did that murder video, that murder expose about those black teens, and I mean, I guess that might be perceived that way, but it really wasn't about race at all.
Was that the 5?
Well, there's a difference between shutting down the conversation, right? Like we were just talking about. You don't have to address his points if you just call him. Here's the thing: if you're going to make a list like this, it should be obvious. if somebody is bigoted, it should be obvious. It should be easy to demonstrate that these are a thing, because these are large, these are big claims. So to say that, oh, this person is racist, it shouldn't be difficult to show that somebody is racist. Now, they might not have said one thing or two things. Being a comedian, for example, a lot of comedians get called racist all of the time. Now, I like to put comedy in its own little corner because it's specifically a thing. But if you've got somebody constantly on their channel making unfunny jokes, is a joke not being funny racist? Is it racist because it's not funny? If it was funny, would it not be racist? Right, you run into this kind of a problem. There needs to be...
Hitmonk makes off-color jokes all the time. This is a shtick, right? Now, you could find him funny or not funny. I think he's there to miss. I happen to like Hitmonk a lot. He's a great guy. But some of his stuff does fall flat. He'll probably admit that. But if he says something that's off, something that we consider to be a racist joke, he's not being racist. He's a comedian.
Right.
Well, yeah, so you would have to get together. If you're trying to demonstrate that somebody was racist, you have to get together an amount of information that equates to harm or attempted harm. You can't just say, "Oh, they said this one thing." Well, that's not good. That's not enough to label an entire person as racist, right?
Yeah, Dave. You know what's funny, David?
Maybe since we're all
one second,
at home.
Hang on, Dave. So real quick, two things. One, this is actually. Cheshire's sister, by the way. I can't talk when she's on. I can't. I just, yeah.
I like her.
You probably figure out why, but yeah, she's. We all love Rachel. But anyways, I gotta breathe. But this list here, I read.
Steve's got an internet crush on my sister. He can't handle it whenever she shows up.
Whatever.
Whatever, man.
This list, I read the blog. The blog's no longer up, but in this blog, they never make an argument of why anybody on his list is bigoted or racist. Not one. Not a single example.
Amazing.
Well, I mean, did it say in the blog? Did the rest of the blog explain how so? What was the rest of the blog about?
Well, I wish I would have
just a shit list.
I know internet, I think it was an interesting thing.
Remember when everybody was really upset that Essence of Thought made a list like this?
Yeah.
You remember when everybody was really upset that happened and everybody was like, this is kind of bullshit? Same thing kind of applies. So my block list on Twitter is public, so anybody can see it. But if you were to ask me why somebody was on that list, I would be able to be like, this is exactly the reason why. Here's why. Here's the examples. Here's what they did. Go check out their page if you don't believe me. Like, I could actually explain to you pretty much why every single individual is on that list. Now, some of those people aren't on that list for necessarily any kind of bad reason. It's mostly just because, one, either I don't want to deal with them, or two, I'm not looking to get in a fight, and some of the stuff they said, rubs me the wrong way. So I'm like, I'm specifically trying to avoid fighting with people in some cases. Helios57542 says, Cheshire's hot sister is hot. We get it, Steve.
Objectification. She's okay.
This is all right.
Hey, look, I've known Cheshire's sister way before she ever became known on the internet. So, all right. So,
my sister's known on the internet
this list because this list is just ridiculous. And I'm glad the person took down the blog, but I don't know if they were pressured to do so. But even the data analysis on this, so if you look at the numbers here, what they're making the argument is that this is how many people these people are reaching, but there's so much overlap. Like, I know most of my subs probably subscribe to pretty much most people on this list. Okay. I mean, I'm sure a lot of us have the same audience as Holy Kool-Aid, as
people follow me who also people follow me usually also follow Dawkins and Harris.
Yeah, I actually really enjoy the gap in numbers here. Pretty much everybody is above like 30K, except Steve way down here at 12.
I'm down at 12. Well, I had a 33K channel though, but I did. I mean, Lawrence Krauss has been on my channel. We had a wonderful discussion on No Boundary Proposal. We talked about astrophysics for 2 hours. To talk to Lawrence Krauss on astrophysics for 2 hours, Dave, let me tell you, it doesn't get any better than that, right?
That's some good shit.
That's some good shit. It was a great episode. I loved it. I mean, but
Yeah.
I actually had to read and study and learn about a little bit about astrophysics to have a conversation of that caliber with him. Even though I've read his book ages ago, I had to reread it. But yeah,
It's up there
I mean,
somewhere.
yeah, a brief something, a universe from nothing.
Yeah.
But I actually like that particular topic. This is why I was able to have a great conversation with him. I have never talked to Dawkins, and I don't know Sam Harris. One of these days, it'll probably happen. But I am hit or miss with them, right? There's some things I agree with them on, there's some things I don't. But I would never put them in. How is Richard Dawkins a bigot, for God's sake? I don't. How does that follow?
I mean, you know, this is another thing. You know, Richard and I aren't exactly. I know Richard, okay, or at least I knew him at one point, and I got to know him, and I've had several good conversations with him, and I mean, many conversations with him. I've socialized with him. I've known him for years. He's not a fucking bigot. I disagree with him on some things. He's not a fucking bigot. In fact,
I do too.
you want to know a super secret about Richard Dawkins? He's actually a sensitive, nice guy. He's actually a nice guy, and he's sensitive, and things hurt him. Amazing. He's not made of Teflon.
I look, I would love to have a discussion with Dawkins on some philosophy stuff. Biology, he would cream me, right? I mean, that's his you know, he would just annihilate me. But I don't disagree with his biology.
He invented the science.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I mean, if I'm going to go against Dawkins, like memes versus genes, I'm going to get annihilated, even though I think that even he has backed off a little bit about that. But if we start talking about philosophy, I may be able to hold a little bit more. But that just because I have a philosophical disagree with him doesn't mean that somehow I have to label him as a bigot in order to defeat his arguments.
Right. And
So,
that whole thing is that straw man argument. You have to label him. This is all straw man. This is the mark of a weak argument. This person, I don't know who this person is. You mentioned their name, but I don't remember who it is. I don't know who that is. But this person is a philosophically very weak person. This person,
this is funny. They're not. I'm not
not
kidding. This person actually knows philosophy pretty decently. It has agreed with me across the board for years. Has gone after Arn. Was on Arn's channel. Has written scholarly, well, semi-scholarly papers. I mean, they're going through college. They're still an undergrad, but they're not an idiot. I mean, this is a smart person.
Well, I'm not saying they're an idiot. I'm saying they don't know how to. They don't know how to skeptic.
Yeah,
they don't know how to.
That's
They
fair
don't know how
enough.
to think.
For somebody to-
This is a symptom of. This is a symptom of cognitive dissonance right here.
Yes.
This is what cognitive dissonance looks like.
Because look at this data analysis. This is not whatever, how many millions of people that they think we're reaching. These are because there's so much overlap. This is a very poor data analysis for somebody who should know better, that understands data analysis. And I think this was just a poorly written virtue signal. Like you said, cognitive dissonance, because a person knows how to properly write something. I've seen them do it. Very skilled in writing papers about the Bible.
This person hasn't read. This person hasn't read anything important. This person hasn't read anything relevant.
No, they have. This I'm telling you, this is a well-read person, and this is cognitive dissonance. This is because somebody who is well-read writes something so badly, right? This is what was really weird to me, because I know this person's pretty well-read, and yet all of a sudden they write something so horrific like this. It's strange. Right? It just doesn't. It'd be like Lawrence Krauss writing a paper and getting all the math wrong, right?
To be fair, on the other side of that, you could also be very well read and completely miss the point.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Well, yeah, you could be unintelligent and a speed reader.
It's also completely possible for somebody to get lost in toxic communities. So, like incels, it's so easy for them to not really have, like they're just sad and lonely, and they go and find some people to talk to, and because they get rejected by women, and they get bombarded constantly with what they think is support, but it's actually just a constant barrage of, oh, women are this, oh, women are that, oh, everything bad that's ever happened to you is a woman's fault, and it starts to seep into the way you think if you spend so much time just listening to that sort of rhetoric. So it's very easy for somebody who is so well read, who understands the topics, who, if you were to have a conversation with them, be able to be completely fine, and there's a decent chance they would retract as they have their blog, that there wouldn't be any kind of actual issue. But how long has it been since any of us talked to this person? We haven't seen hide nor hair of them in months. So it's very, very reasonable that if they're just getting bombarded by people saying, oh, well, Steve is this, oh, well, David Silverman's this, oh, well, these people are this, over and over and over and over again, it's so easy to start being able to read that into somebody, no matter what it is that they're saying. And that's why lists like this are a problem, particularly if you can't back your shit up. That's why backing your shit up is important. Because if I just tell somebody there, oh, Steve's wrong, or oh, Steve's a prescriptivist, oh, David Silverman is a bigot, is a bigot. If nobody ever actually looks into it or doesn't actually back their shit up, it's so easy to just start reading into it.
And remember, this person, David, went from coming into the community as an atheist, then became agnostic, and now it's a polytheist.
Oh,
yeah, so
it's confusing.
Has changed quite. I'm fine with people changing their positions, right? But now,
so this person is really logically challenged, then, huh?
I don't know where they're ending up, right? They're all. I mean, look, if they want to be a polytheist or whatever, but it's
okay. We're big mean poopy heads.
Hang on, they're fitting into that community now. They actually have tagged people in Twitter in the polytheist community that are completely virtue signal tweets, right? I mean, it's just like, come on, this person before was actually in my camp trying to talk to people about critical thinking, and then threw it all away merely to fit in.
Well, on the other hand, you've also got a situation where we're now all three of us, and probably haha Bool, it sucks to be you. All of us for this stream people are gonna claim that we put them on blast and be like, how could you say this? How could they throw this person under the bus? It's like, no, that's not what's happened. They've gone out and called everybody a bigot, and we're calling
the bus. I'm like, no, I didn't.
Well, this is what
you're responsible for your actions, and you should pay the price.
Yeah.
Well, this is what David was saying earlier. He was saying that if we call them out for their bullshit, now all of a sudden we've wronged them, we've slighted them in some way. We're the bad guys because we're like, oh no, no, we're not. So now it's a problem.
Calling people on their shit is violence.
Dave, what do you think about that?
It's amazing.
Hang on.
Where this person needs to be called out on for their idiocy, for making this chart. And if they don't like the idiocy, they don't like being called out for the idiocy of this chart, well, maybe they shouldn't post idiocy no more. Maybe they should read and think for really poos no more. This is not something that anybody did wrong except the person who posted the obvious straw man argument.
And we call them, and this is what I particularly do. A friend or a foe doesn't matter to me when somebody posts things that I think are completely horrifically incorrect, right? And like you said, they will throw that out there. Words are violence. No, words are not violence. Stop that. That's bullshit. Okay, words are not violence. Can they incite violence?
Words are not violence.
Right, but the words themselves, I'm sorry, are not a violent act. There's a person on this list who actually advocates for that. It's just a thought for some reason.
Wait a minute, hold on. David was just saying that this list is harmful. That's just words.
It's harmful to do the list.
Harmful is not violence, though.
Defamation is harmful. And it's hurtful to see those words. But at the same time, calling me on my shit, telling me I'm wrong is never assault. I mean, if you're inciting violence against a person, words can hurt you. And if you're damaging a person with your words, that can hurt. But you're not damaging a person by attacking ideas. Attacking ideas is never an assault.
Being heard
this
is
person
not
didn't
violence.
attack any of my ideas. This person attacked me as a person. This person doesn't know me, and they attack me as a person. That's hurtful.
Yeah,
but if they don't,
I was blown away by this. And again, in some weird, twisted way, I'm flattered to be on this list with some of these names, clearly, but not for the reasons why they made the list, right? I mean, I am nowhere near the caliber or activist of any of these people.
The exact same thing as when EOT made their list. It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
It's a hit list.
On the other hand, yeah, I brought that up just because I wanted to demonstrate the point before. That was a preemptive, but this, because that's what people are going to say. So Jens for 5 said, well, I agree with all that. Do you think it's okay when people call themselves anti-SJW?
Yeah, people can call themselves anything they want.
Yeah, I used to go by anti-SJW.
I mean, I think social justice had its roots in a good place, but it's really nothing that I would associate with now.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of
social-
SJW, but I don't
social
say I'm
justice
anti-SJW any longer. But I'm not a fan of SJW. I've never have been. But that doesn't make me a bad person. This means that I disagree with the way.
No,
they
it
go
doesn't
about
make you
doing
a
things.
bad person. I am for
I might be
social
able to-
justice, but not
Right.
social justice.
Right.
I might be
right.
able to clarify that. It essentially means that although the ideas and the kind of what the general stands for, as in like people being equal, people being treated fairly, et cetera, we'll agree with that. It's the tactics and the logic
Right.
that we don't agree with. It's
movement.
it's not the ideology, it's the movement. Yeah. So it's the same thing with a lot of toxic trans community. That just because we don't like and call out bullshit in that community doesn't mean we're against trans people in any way, shape, or form.
Hello?
It means that we don't
Hello?
like toxic behavior no matter where it goes or where it is.
And by the way, even if you're straight, you can talk about trans issues. Even if you're straight, you can talk about gay issues. Even if you're a guy, you can talk about feminist issues.
You want straight people to talk about trans issues. That's how you get your voices heard more and more by more people. You want people on the side.
Right, those are people you want to get on your side, right?
Why would you alienate those people?
If you're in the trans
Why
community,
Instead of making enemies out of the people who have fought on your side forever.
You've already got the trans people on your side, even in the trans community, there's a lot of discord. There's some bitter rivalry even in the trans community itself. But if you're in the trans community, you want the non-trans people on your side. Those are the ones that you should be allying with.
Well, especially if you're a minority. You're not going to get anything done in an effective, positive way by just yelling and screeching at people who otherwise would be on your side or have been on your side in the past. And on the other hand, those people might start turning against you and being like, listen, we appreciate that you should be whatever you want to be, but you've gone too far at this point. The Jessica,
and all whites are not racist, and all straights are not transphobic. It's
Right.
yeah, I mean, it's
look. Even the trans people.
the problem is that
if
again, we're going back to postmodernism. Okay, there's a lot of trans. The gay movement effectively won, and it's moved on to trans issues now, and there aren't a lot of trans issues out there. By and large, most people think trans people are equal people and should be treated as equal people, and that's great. But when you have this need for victimization, you've got this whole I'm being subjugated by this majority, and you have no basis for that, right? If you can't actually show any anti-trans or bigotry against you, you just feel it, you just say it, and nobody's going to call you out on it and say it's in your mind or that it's your problem. So you've got this situation where it's almost that you're not allowed to want to be friends with people outside your group, because if you do that, you humanize the outgroup, and you make this and you add nuance to the argument. And it's a bad nuance, because that nuance requires information. Some white people are good. Some white people are bad. It's much easier to say all of that. And that means not taking in any friends. And that's why there's this churning. And of course, it goes back to postmodernism. It goes back to lack of research. It goes back to not having a real issue in the first place, or not having too many real issues in the first place. It's really hard for people to play the victim these days. And
that's what makes intersectionality so. I've always said that intersectionality to me has been persecution versus privilege. It's who can play the game better, right? Who can say, "Look, I'm more victimized than you." Because if you go look at the people that shit on me, you like this kind of crap. In every case I've seen so far, they're playing that victimization. They're saying they're more persecuted, and for some reason, we're the boogeymen that they wanted to say are doing that, yet we have nothing to do with any of that. I mean, none of us here have ever done anything that is in any way construed as bigoted, racist, or any anti-trans. In any way, quite the opposite.
I've got an interesting example in the chat. So this person came in swinging at David in the chat, and then I said, well, show don't tell. I look forward to seeing your video in response to this. They're basically saying that David is making claims without backing them up. And I said, well, I look forward to seeing your video about this. Their response was, I'm on your side in most things. It's not about sides. If you're going to make a claim, back up your claim. I don't care what you agree with me on in the past. That's completely irrelevant.
Ask them what claim I haven't backed up.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. They're not in timeout or anything. We'll wait and see. Okay. It'll be glorious.
Yeah, look, if people say that I make a claim that I didn't back up, 99% of the time I always will. There are instances where I cannot because it's subjective, or I can't release certain things. That this is going to happen, right? But there are fundamental objective fact claims when it comes to math, science, and philosophy that I can back up. But when I do, now I'm just a poopy head. It's like that. It's like, oh yeah, Steve, let's say, like, for example, the other night I was in the the atheist community of Austin, right? I was in their Discord, and I like the guys over there. I really do have great discussions with some of those people over there. And I'm not a fan of the community, but in that Discord I like. But we were talking about math, right? And I was explaining mathematical principles from a calculus point of view, right? Repeating decimals and other things. And I had one person who said they were a mathematician kind of guy who was disagreeing with me. And I at first I was floored. I was like, look, this is objective. This is not like, hey, let's talk about if God exists or not, right? I don't know if there's a fact of matter to be even had there. But math, I could say, hey, David, let's look at the math. And if you understand math, this is the way it has to be, right? 1 + 1 = 2, we can demonstrate. A = A, we can demonstrate. I can show certain things in math. And when they say, well, you're wrong, Steve, I'm like, okay, let's go demonstrate it, right? I can give them that. And by the way, I did finally convince them that I was right. But there's certain things that you can actually show demonstrations for, or you can at least give sufficient evidence for, right? But that's not always the case. There's some autobiographical things that you say, look, I hold this to be the case, but I'm not going to sit there and spend 5 hours convincing you of it. I don't have an onus of a burden of persuasion, right? But I still have yet to see what Dave has claimed that they're talking about what he hasn't backed up. Again, I think Dave's wrong on a few things.
Well, yeah, there is a reasonable expectation. If I'm going to if somebody believes that this is the case, well, okay, fine. But if you're going to go ahead and start making claims saying that, oh, well, Steve is this, David's this, Chesh is this, Boole is this, well, then, yeah, you have this list, something like this list, and somebody asks you, what makes you say that? It's not that you have to convince the other person. It's that you should be able to back up your bullshit.
Right.
Explain why these people are on this.
They called Bullinator a bigot once. David, a bigot. What?
No, that's not even the best
fucking guy I've ever met in my life. I don't think he would know, and he's part of the LGBT community. I don't think he would know what it is to be bigoted. If I say, Dave,
oh no, that's not even the best one.
Bigot, he couldn't do
my
it, right?
Favorite.
When you call Bullinator a bigot, you've lost the plot.
I saw somebody in a live stream chat claim that Boole was a traitor to autistic people because he was apparently taking advantage, because he is autistic, of knowing what triggers and doesn't trigger autistic people, from a conversation off of Twitter where Boole was like, no, I don't think so, and then blocked the guy, and that was like the only thing Boole said.
Hey David, and I mean God, David, because you're autistic. Have we taken advantage of your not? Yeah, David, are we taking advantage of you? I'm talking to God now. Do you feel like you've been victimized over the last 5 years that I've known you? Please let me know.
No, there's only one
but you're
person
autistic. You don't know better, man.
There's only one person who I could consider of taking advantage of me over the last 5 years, and I think we all know who I'm talking about. So
we do.
I know who it is. So I got called. Okay, so in one situation, I got called a tranny, as if it was a derogatory term to me. I wouldn't care either way. I wouldn't take it as a pejorative, because it's like, well, I guess I'm doing a good job either way. I don't know. So I asked them which way I was going. They were unable to tell me. And then later down the line, I got called a traitor to my gender. So I was like, but which gender am I, though?
And by the way, these are the same people, David, that are calling me a rape apologist. The ones that are calling me a rape apologist because that's the stigma they want to. And by the way, I'm very much against rape. People I know are victims of.
You're a rape apologist for having me on the show.
Right.
And here's the thing. I have actively stood up and said, look, I'm against the Catholic Church and what they've done with the way they've shoved around pedophile priests. I've stood up for years on this. And then I have Catholics that are trying to flip the script and trying to label me a rape apologist because I labeled certain people rape apologists that are actively saying, look, the Catholic Church, we should still give them money because, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, look, if you're supporting the Catholic Church knowing what has gone on and you look past it and you're like, it's no big deal that, tens of thousands of kids were molested, whatever, it's still the Catholic Church is right. I'm going to take a little umbrage with that, right?
Yeah.
But they can't have that, and so they have to flip the script and try to make somehow me appear to be a rape apologist. And they're the same ones saying that Chess is a traitor to her gender. And I'm like, wow,
Steve,
hypocrisy is by name.
Well, I also went out. Right. Well, I also went out and said, listen, if you could demonstrate to me in a reasonable fashion that Steve is a rape apologist without you also being a rape apologist by that standard, that I would stop working with Steve 100%. And they didn't show me shit. We got somebody trying to start a fight with Steve in the chat. Advent said for $2, David, anyone who lacks belief in God, an atheist? ?
This is the fight they want Dave and I to have, and Dave's going to answer this. And one of these days, Dave and I will have this discussion.
But we'll have this. I mean,
we'll save it for a big event. We'll save it for a big non sequitur event. Yeah,
of course.
The answer to the question.
Anybody who doesn't have a belief in God, an active belief in a deity being defined as a supernatural consciousness, is an atheist. Just like my friend Steve here, he doesn't have an active belief in a God, therefore he's an atheist. And on that note, I got to go bye.
Hey, call out the troops, man. We're going. Hey, we strike at dawn. He
disagreed with Steve. Kick him out. We can never talk to him again.
Right? Oh my God. He just.
You're a Nazi. Everybody's a Nazi.
I got to end this relationship.
Listen, it's not you, it's me. We're going in a separate direction. You're being let go. You're being part of an outplacement.
I told Dave before he came on, I'm like, look at Dave, I want you to come back and everything like that. But, I said, we scheduled a time, like it's a date. I'm like, but you're not getting laid out of this. So I wanted him up front to know that it's platonic.
I don't know, Steve. It just seems to be, it seems to be a yesterday argument. It doesn't stir me like it used to. In 2015, the atheist versus agnostic argument was like the key message I was giving. It was like
Steve is literally the only one who still cares.
Yeah, right. I'm the last holdout. I'm the remnant. I am literally the remnant.
He's the only one who still cares to have the argument. But in Steve's defense, the only reason you still care to have the argument is because people keep strawmanning what you're saying. If they'd stopped doing that and either one dropped it or two had the discussion, it would be dropped and we wouldn't be talking about it anymore.
In the atheist community of Austin's Discord, the people in the Discord, right, they actually now side with me. I have changed hearts and minds, but they'll never say it on the show kind of stuff. They're never to go on any of these actual shows and go, yeah, well, Steve, the way he's describing it is philosophically sound. He's not like an idiot. And by the way, the arguments have become so much more nuanced, right? But what happens, David, is that they straw man me and they want to see people have arguments on it rather than have discussions, right? And that, I think, is the problem, because once you start having an argument, a hostile argument, these are all adversarial disagreements or argument, right? But once they pass that line, like I had Seth Andrews, who right? I was talking to him on Twitter the other day, and he's like, because something happened in a Facebook group that was attached to him, and he's like, well, I don't have anything to do with that group. It's just a fan page. I'm like, oh no, look, Seth, I get it. I don't have any issue with Seth Andrews. He's always been cordial with me. He kids around with me all the time. Steve, you're an atheist, and I clap back with him, right? But it's all in fun, right? Because he's a nice guy. The dude legit is one of the nicest guys I've ever met. I don't think he has a hostile bone in his body.
He has a voice made out of butter.
Yeah. Oh God, I would love to have his voice. I'd be much more popular than I am. But I don't have a disagreement with him that we need to have a hostile relationships about, right? Because that's not. But I've seen people try to.
Wait, hold on, Steve. Are you telling me that you don't have to have a disagreement to the death?
Right? Oh, right.
Is that what you're telling me? Are you telling me?
Like just like Like, you mean like a dishonest lawyer that told me he agrees with me, and I have the screenshots of a dishonest lawyer telling me that he agrees with me?
I'm going to go ahead and throw in no, just to piss him off. I'm going to throw in alleged lawyer. He says he's a lawyer. I'm not saying he's not.
Talking about the alleged lawyer.
Yeah.
Alleged lawyer.
So this, a no-name lawyer that we know has years ago, and I have a screenshot, told me he's convinced that I'm right in all of this. Right? He says my logic is right. He was proven wrong. Dr. Alex Malpass, if you know who he is.
This is the guy who said he agreed with Steve. Is the person whose video Matt tweeted out in response to Steve.
And this person was corrected by a logician, right? Alex Malpass, who's a PhD in math, showed him his logic, and he believe me, he thinks this guy's logic is just shit, straight up shit. And he said this.
So if we're talking about the same guy, we're talking about the same guy, right?
The same guy. So this dishonest lawyer has told me, Steve, I do agree with you, but I was told that I have to continue to fight to you on this to the death, regardless of whether I agree with you or not. I have this in writing from him. If you ask him, I bet he will tell you this, and he'll twist it and contort it. But he has to virtue signal because he wants to fit into that. He wants to suck up to Matt Dillahunty. I don't give a fuck to suck up to Matt Dillahunty. He's nobody in my circles. I'm not part of that community. I will call Matt out in a fucking heartbeat, and I get vilified for that because, Steve, who the fuck are you to call out the great Matt Dillahunty? Look, Matt's done great for a lot of things. Don't get me wrong. I think he has some great debates, and I think he's had shitty debates. But when he says something that is bullshit, I'm going to call him out on it. And he's tweeting out this dishonest lawyer that he doesn't realize has agreed with me and said that before, but has to continue the fight because of views. And he was told to, quote, fight to the death.
Letty says, let Steve know that pineapple pizza is a metaphysical necessity.
I will kick you out right now.
But
dude, isn't that funny? I mean, this is what we deal with, man.
This lawyer, just to put things into perspective, what this guy did, because I didn't tell you this, he had me on his show. And, he had me on his show when I had the lawsuit going on. Now, the lawsuit was put on, and I'm not going to get into my lawsuit, but, I have to tell you, Steve, I am a 23-year civil rights activist veteran. Before that, I have 74 patents. And that's all law speak. And I know my way around the law, okay? I'm not a lawyer, but I know my way around the law. And I did file that lawsuit on my own, and I did have a very coherent plan. And he called me on his show to talk about the lawsuit. And I went on his show to talk about my lawsuit. And the lawsuit, if you looked at it, it wasn't a complete lawsuit because I was going to file extensions and I had a strategy to do this. And I went on his show ready to explain all of this. And he never asked me. I went on his show. We talked about everything except the lawsuit. And then after he had me on the show, he told me that he said that my lawsuit was the worst lawsuit he's ever seen. It was terrible.
Oh, okay. Let's talk about that for a second. Okay, first
of all, this is after he had me on and didn't ask me any questions. I went on to talk to him about it.
Well, let me tell you, Dave, I will never talk to this person again. I will never talk. This person is a morally reprehensible person. I will never have a discussion with them. I will never talk to them. I don't even mention their name unless I absolutely have to, because that is how morally reprehensible they would. That person has damaged my friends. I don't give a shit what they've said about me. It doesn't bother me. Fuck them. But they have actively harmed friends of mine. Yeah, you can. I just don't.
Nate Brody. He's an idiot.
Yeah, you're free to.
And by the way, Nate Brody, if you want to have me on your show to talk about my lawsuit that you're too fucking afraid to talk about, I'm here.
I would watch that, by the way, and I don't usually watch. I have a rule. Here's the thing, Dave. I have a rule. Hang on, Dave. I have a rule. I don't watch people that I block, and so I don't watch his shit. He just made a video about me. I haven't watched it. People have said that I have. It's a lie. Ask Bullinator, ask Cheshire. I have a steadfast rule. And when I do violate that rule, it's very rare. And I even let Chesh know, hey, look, I watched a few minutes of this video. So she knows that I violated my own rule because I don't watch anybody who makes a video about me that I have blocked. That is a god honest fucking truth. But here's the thing, Dave. That same lawyer told people years ago I didn't have a case against Kyle. that it would never get off the ground. That every legal thing that he has said about my lawsuit with Kyle, it has been wrong.
And people ask why I question if he's a lawyer or not.
I mean,
allegedly he's a lawyer.
So I was always thinking, how bad of a lawyer do you have to be to leave law to become a YouTube dude?
I can just tell you that everything. I'm not going to say whether he's a lawyer or not. I'm not going to make any claim on that. But I will tell you this for a fact.
I'm asking a question. I'm not making a claim.
Yeah. That's fine. I mean, but I can tell you from absolute fact that if you read the documents, he got shit wrong from start to finish. Right? I mean,
and for that, you're getting to put in timeout. Nate's stuff is, quote, Nate's stuff is really good and unbiased. I was expecting bias, but it never materialized and timed out.
All right, so hey, God, God's been around for a very long time, okay? He's not eternal, but this God has been around for a very long time. Has this person that we're talking about, this honest lawyer, has he not, from the Great Debate Community G+ years ago, been the most obstinate, incorrect, logically flawed person that actual PhDs in logic has told him he's an idiot? Is that not true?
That is true. It is absolutely true. He's gone toe to toe with some of the people like Ozymandias and Dr. Malpass have all kind of said, yeah,
and Bert Poole.
And Bert Poole. Oh, that's another good one.
And by the way, I have heard this. I didn't watch his last video, but people tell me things. David, a long time ago, that person made numerous videos about me. Some of them are no longer there. He's taken some down. But I actually have a history of this, of screenshotting shit for the records. And I have where I screenshotted, hey, this is a nice hatchet job, because he made Frankenstein cuts. And he made it appear to be me saying things that I wasn't saying. Like, for example, David, do you remember when I had him on my channel and we talked about, I did an internal critique of if his positions are correct, because he didn't understand logical negations and scope and all this other shit. But I said if he's correct, that I was trying to tell him that rock would be agnostic the way he's looking at it. But I've never held the position that rocks are agnostic, right? Clearly. But he has dishonestly edited things, from what I understand, to make it sound like I have been promoting the position that rocks are atheist, or rocks are agnostic. And I'm like, that's not what I've never said.
I legitimately asked that question of Steve a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about philosophy. I asked that. I was like, so where would you categorize them as? Would you categorize them as agnostics? And he's like, no, of course not. That would be ridiculous. So it's like, well, there you go.
I guess I'm told, again, I haven't watched the video, but what I'm told is that this person is honestly saying, well, Steve was arguing that rocks were agnostic one time. No, I wasn't. I was doing an internal critique by showing what happens if you're using his reasoning, right? And then I was like, well, in that particular case, if you're going to force me into this, yeah, I would be, but that's
if anything, he's the one that brought that bullshit up.
Right, because he was trying to play this game of semantic game, and I'm like, okay, let's go down this line. But now he's, I guess, promoting that as, oh, look, Steve held this position, which I never did. Anybody who knows me knows that's bullshit. He's dishonest. He's straight up dishonest. Because 2 years ago I called him out on hatcheting or Frankenstein cuts and basically a hatchet job. And I have that. One of these days we'll get it all out there. But yeah, dude, he's dishonest as fuck, dude. Just ridiculously so. And I'm sorry he was on your show and he did that.
Yeah, because I try to see people in the best possible light, and the opinion
sometimes
that I have
look like shit in the best possible light.
And they do. And they do.
And by the way, he'll take this, Dave. He'll watch this, Dave. I guarantee it. He'll watch this and he'll find a way to make views out of it.
Well, Nate, I hope you step up.
I'm not mentioning his name, because I don't watch his shit.
Nate Brody, I hope you step up.
This is what they want. They want people. He has actually said that he will use clickbait titles and he will manipulate in order to get views. This is something that he.
Wait.
If you asked him, you'd probably agree with that.
You want to know what it's going to be? It's going to be Steve is telling David Silverman not to go on my show, which nobody said.
There you go.
Nate, why don't you come on my show?
Ooh.
Have him on my show.
No, he would.
On my show. We'll talk about my lawsuit. We'll talk about your review of my lawsuit. And we'll talk about your friends. That'll be fun.
I would actually watch that. Yes.
That I would watch. I would watch that. Yeah. That would be entertaining as hell.
But isn't it funny that Matt Dillahunty promoted his video, and Matt doesn't know this guy's history and know that PhDs have called him an idiot. I mean, it's like he's Matt Dillahunty will not address my arguments. He can't. I swear to you, I am convinced by all. He has no idea what my arguments even are, nor will he address them because I use predicate and modal logic. And all his refutation was, hey, this video reflects my position against Steve. And people are like, dude, first of all, this is a legit troll that he's promoting because this person made fake accounts to come on my Facebook page and troll Bullinator, God here, and me. And people say, well, why are you calling him a troll? Because he literally trolled Bullinator and myself on my Facebook page by making fake accounts and bullshitting and sea-lying and all this other stuff, right? But Matt Dillahunty is using him to defeat me rather than actually address any of my arguments. Because I tell you what, Matt Dillahunty talks about me all the fucking time. Do you know how many times he has shown in any way by showing anything that I've ever said was wrong? No, it is Steve is wrong by fiat because reasons. Really?
Yeah.
So we do have a
I
question.
remember. I will remember. I'll just mention. When I was suing AA, he went around bad mouthing me to everybody, saying, "Oh, I can't say my side because there's non-disclosures and because there's an active lawsuit." And now there's no active lawsuit and there's no non-disclosures and everybody can talk. So there's nothing at all stopping Matt Dillahunty or Beth Presswood or anyone else from giving their side of the story. They're all still silent, though. Amazing how that is.
I would have had, back in the day, I would have had either one of them on if they wanted to give their side. I would have been just as objective as I was with you.
Sure.
I don't have favoritism or anything like that.
Non-objective. Let them go on Nate Brody's show and give their side.
Yeah, that's yeah, because there's no obviously he's so unbiased, and yet again, people don't know his history of the last 3 or 4 years. I have a record of it. I have a record of his dishonesty. God here knows the record of his dishonesty, but people don't see that because now that I'm getting a little more popular, and now that there's new stuff coming out, and now there's a huge lawsuit with non sequitur, he's bottom feeding off of that just so he can suck up to people like Matt Dillahunty and get Matt Dillahunty on his side because Matt Dillahunty has the views. I don't play that game. Look, this is the funniest thing to me is this. If I really wanted to be that YouTuber to get popular and get views, why would I be calling out people that would probably help me become bigger in the community, right? I mean, it seems counterproductive, right? But I'm not like that. To me, they're ethical considerations. If I think Matt Dillahunty has done something wrong, I'm going to call him out on it. And yet David here was at least nice enough to come on at that one time, share his story. We gave him a fair, neutral platform. We were not hostile to you, were we?
Nope.
Yeah,
and you were neutral and
you shared your story. But you know what? Matt Dillahunty has said if anybody has you on, they're pretty much excommunicated from his circles, pretty much.
Because Matt Dillahunty's a fucking child, a lying fucking child. Lies.
And on the other hand of that too, it's not like they, one, weren't invited, and two, and it's not like we sat there and let you say whatever you wanted. We asked you questions. We asked for clarification. Sure. We gave pushback. So on the other hand, to kind of go wrap back around to politics, because I mean that would be a bad look for the ACA. If Matt Dillahunty is promoting trolls,
he has a lot to lose.
Then that is a really, really bad look for the ACA if he's just promoting people without doing any background research. If his hate boner for Steve is so bad because he doesn't want to address the argument, and he gets in bed with people who hate Steve so badly that they are actively apologists to rape, then you've got Matt Dillahunty, who in hanging out with them, by their definition, is now a rape apologist. You're starting to run into some serious fucking problems.
For the record, Bullinator, is it or is it not true that person came over to my Facebook page, trolled the shit out of us? I finally blocked them on my Facebook page. They made new accounts to try to get back on, and I consider that to be trolling. If you're blocked, you're blocked. You don't make fake accounts to try to continue the conversation. Did he not try to do that?
That went on.
I have a video on
that went on for what, 4 fucking days? He did that to us.
It was almost a week probably. And I made a video about this. I have it on this channel with that evidence. Oh, wait, evidence, that E word. That nasty E word of evidence, right? I don't make these claims frivolously. I have all this documented. So when I say that he has trolled and he has done this, I literally have the evidence for this. And by the way, he's not even going to deny it. If you ask him, I bet you he'll fully admit that, but he'll come up with some excuse. right? Because he skirts that line. He knows just as much what he can get away with lying and what he knows what he can't get away with. He can't lie about trolling because he admitted. I mean, he can't get away with saying that he didn't agree with me. I have him sending it to me that he really does agree with me, but he has to fight just because he has people on that side that want him to continue the fight. And I have this at all. And so, but anyways, we didn't get into the social justice aspect. So maybe touch on that or do it next time. Because I want you back, Dave. I really enjoy your conversations with you.
I do too, Steve. This is a good talk. I am getting kind of tired, so I would like to wrap it up.
Yeah.
We'll do more next time.
Yeah.
Well,
people are like, look at Steve sucking up to Dave for views. Fuck you.
I do want to know a little bit. I do want to know a little bit before David leaves about what he's working on and what the future holds, because we're kind of talking about the concerns with the ACA hanging out with trolls being problematic, and we kind of can all guess where that's going to go. So, on the other hand, what are you working on and where are you headed? Since you don't seem to have a pack of trolls.
I kind of have embraced the trolls, so what I'm doing, I have recovered much. I still have a way to go, but I'm doing well. I'm working as the managing director for the Connu Foundation now. The Connu Foundation is a small family foundation, medium-sized family foundation. And basically what I do is we look for places to give money to promote Enlightenment values, environmental realism, and education. And we focus on those three areas. And it's nice because what I'm doing is I'm taking this other place now. Now I go to nonprofits and I learn about them and I evaluate them and I come back and say, this is how much money we should give. And it's giving me a really, really interesting perspective. It's showing me, first of all, it's showing me how many nonprofits are just spinning their wheels, how many nonprofits are really getting shit done and are facing the future with reality. And it's also really raising my awareness with regards to social justice. When I look at the education system that is desperately trying so hard to boost up people of color and poor people, and I'm just seeing so much from a different perspective. There's just so much trying to help eradicate this racism, eradicate this patriarchy. But the numbers behind it, they don't match. And so what I'm doing is I'm learning as I go into this, as I see this social justice from the outside. Because remember, I was woke as fuck when I was at American Atheists. So now I'm seeing
you and
this.
Richard Carrier.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't quite as bad as Richard, but yeah. I was there. Dude. Yeah, he was woke as fuck. He was beyond steroids.
Well, out of curiosity, does that kind of grant credence to, if you're in the group and you're part of that and you're bombarded with this ideology all the time, that it does color your perception?
Yeah, I mean, it allows me to humanize the wokeists. Okay, I know these are good people. Okay, they're good people. Yes. They're trying to do good.
Good people with bad tactics.
They really they have terrible tactics. But they have deliberately terrible tactics. They have terrible tactics that allow the protection via echo tunnels. They boost the ego without requiring the effort of research. They create demons to fight against. They create an outrage against those demons to unify the in ranks and to create this rage-based victimhood. The social justice movement is. I wish it was designed, going back to Dawkins, if you look at the social justice movement as a meme, you can see how it's evolved. You can see how it's behaving like a gene that intelligently evolves to its environment and becomes stronger and protects itself. And looking at the intricacies from all of the different angles, and seeing how it is creating a blame and guilt-based mess, a really big mess. I mean, and I also need to say that, I don't want to get too much into my personal brain, but I'm I have a guilt shame complex. That's one of the key factors of my personality.
I think we talked about that last
very
time.
aware. Yeah. So I have a lot of sensitivity to guilt, and this false guilt that's overriding the social justice movement has just really caught me on fire, because it's all about, this false victimhood of the minority. When it's, this false, racism is real, but it's not systemic. If it's systemic, it's this much systemic. And it's also this much hurting the African American population.
Leftover systemic.
Yeah, you have to look to find systemic racism. And you can see it in the laws that like the crack cocaine laws, like I told you about. But, by and large, these kids in the inner city, they've got a lot of things, a lot of organizations that are trying to boost them up. And there's nothing.
So what you're saying is essentially, instead of calling the whole system a problem, you're blowing it out of proportion instead of actually dealing with the individual situations that can actually be addressed and dealt with.
Look, so you've got a disparity of black people. There's a dearth of black people. There's fewer black people than should be going into college. Okay. There's a few different reasons for that to happen. One is systemic racism, a racism in the system that's somehow stopping black people from doing that. Another thing might be that black culture is notoriously anti-education. That's definitely true. Getting an education is acting white, and it is considered shameful in black culture. That is definitely hurting the black kids. Another thing, black families don't stay together a lot, and that also is directly correlated to kids doing poorly in school. Those are two definite things that are really happening. They are 100% surely hurting black kids, and they are 0% my problem. They are 0% my fault, and I deserve zero guilt over the fact that black people, as a culture, African American black people, have an anti-education culture. That's 0% my fault. It is definitely hurting them. And they don't stay together. That's 0% my fault. It's definitely hurting them. But then they look at the end and they say, look, there's a disparity. That's all racism. It's all your fault. White people are oppressing us. That's my problem. Let me be clear. The systemic racism is definitely my problem. If it's there, fuck that. I want that gone. Show me where it is, and I'll stand by your side to fight it. But this shit, well, we got to talk about our partners again, okay? When my partner comes to me and says, X, Y, and Z is wrong and it's all your fault, but X and Y are their fault, I'm going to say, hey, wait a minute, partner. You're blaming me for all of your shit, but most of this shit is on you. And that's what we as a society
that sounds like what happened with my partner, right? Because
there is something,
we got.
Yeah, there is something to be said. Yeah, there is something to be said for historically being in poor positions. Historically, sure. Because they were oppressed in this time, which has built a culture, but it's still on you to adapt and fix your culture. That's not a systemic problem in the system. That's a problem with the culture that needs to be changed and adjusted for your own benefit, but you have to do that. You can't blame other people for that, right?
It's not white oppression. It's not white oppression that
anymore, at least.
That black people say that getting an education is acting white. That's not white oppression. That's all you guys. That's all you.
Yeah, I think
0% white people.
I think we know what the next conversation should be, because we can't go into all of this now, but I think that'd be a great thing to talk about.
So many different things. We got a couple super chats, but we got to wrap it up. So Chess, can you?
Yeah, I've got the super chats real quick. I'm going to answer the first one if that's okay. From Advent for 5 said, Steve, I support you with money. You should debate Brody. It makes you look bad. Only going after weak debaters. Okay, well, first off, if you're talking about Snake, that's not Steve's fault. Snake's literally the only one who would talk to him about it. So, secondly, debating Brody would be a waste of time. What I think Steve should do, I see what you're saying. I don't entirely disagree with you. I don't think a debate's the way to do it. If anybody has seen Red's Rhetoric's video about Unirock, that's what Steve should be responding with. It shouldn't be a debate. It should be that kind of a video.
Okay. here's my position.
Also,
on this.
supporting with money doesn't really mean anything for what actually happens on the channel.
And I appreciate that. I do. Look, I anybody who's Patreon, anybody who's a member, I love them, right? I mean, it's just, I mean, I do have, I connect with them. I talk to them all the time, right? I mean, so it means a lot when somebody is a member. Although you can't buy me. You can't. Yes. I have a $50 Patreon that one time that, look, was trying to promote and harass my friends. I wasn't having it, right? But here's the thing. My friends are my friends. And this person that they're talking about for me to have a debate with has actively harmed my friends. I have decided a long time ago, I'm never going to talk to this person ever again. Ever again. It's a personal thing. It has nothing to do with the topics. It is completely personal. I do not want to be in the same room with them. I don't want to be around them. I don't want to talk to them. If you think that they have a great argument, arguments stand on their own accord. Take what their argument is and come with me. Somebody else can use their argument.
What Steve is saying is that you could not pay him enough to talk to Nate Brody.
Right. I mean, now, if I ever make another video,
I have
by the way,
opinion.
Here's the thing. I've already had discussions with him on this.
I'm just here to TLDR,
Steve.
Steve.
He was shown to be wrong by experts.
I said, Steve, that you've had discussions with Nate ad nauseum.
I have discussions with him. I've shown him in real time his errors. And by the way, he had the same scope fallacy that another YouTuber that goes after me all the time had. And by the way, that person was wrong about modal scope as well. Well, it wasn't a modal scope, but it was a scope fallacy, because they thought that a negation of a predicate and a negation of a proposition is a double negation. It is not. Aaron Ra had the same issue with logic. And then you have the people that are experts in logic going, hey, no, Steve's telling you the correct. This is math. This is logic.
And all these people are starting to all hang out together in their wrongness. Right? It's lovely.
Right?
Okay, so
again, this is not a matter of philosophy. This is math. Logic is math.
Next super chat. Next super chat. Helios for 5 said, sadly, Chesh, if we look at the current trend in U.S. politics, it seems like getting in bed with rape apologists would help a political career instead of hurting it.
Hashtag Joe Biden?
I feel so. Listen, America, do you need some help? Like, are you okay? You're running into a situation where you're going to have to vote between two rapists. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's like, I mean, look, at this point, at least I don't think Joe Biden is as dumb as Trump. I mean, there's neither one are great options, but let's be realistic here. And I'm not just virtual signaling because people know I'm not into politics so much. But Trump has got to be one of the dumbest fucking morons on the planet, straight up. I mean, this is just not me throwing that out there. People go, oh, look, Steve hates Trump. The guy's a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody who disagrees with that, I love to have the discussion why you think Trump is not an idiot, because everything he says is goddamn stupid. But
I have been, I've had a bit of a different experience because, well, I shouldn't say that. I recently gave up cable for the first time. So I'm living without cable now for the first time. And so I'm discovering news on YouTube. And so that's how I get my news now, news clippings on YouTube. And it allows me to easily pick what story I want to watch and what network I want to watch. And that's amazing. And what that's gotten me to do is I've been able to watch MSNBC, watch Fox News, and then watch the live feed or a recording of the feed from the Trump speech.
Yeah, so they're not the same.
They're not the same. I mean,
shocker.
I will say that the whole fake news narrative is definitely true to some degree. MSNBC makes some shit up. There's no doubt about that.
I'm not. Look,
but
this is the thing, though.
But
some of the stuff is fake news, but Trump puts everything under fake news. That's the problem. That's the problem.
Yeah, but I mean, I did see.
Bullshit,
but at the same time, I did watch as our president thought that injecting light into the body would somehow kill the virus, or that ingesting disinfectant.
And he wasn't being sarcastic.
No.
This is
the same guy who looked at the sun to see a solar eclipse.
just
actually
understanding that a virus is an infection. Just the concept of not understanding the fact that you would have to expose every cell of virus in the human body at the same time and expose it to dry light.
Dave, Trump was the one that said, "Look," he said, and we're going to wrap it up on this. He said, "We don't. You can call it the flu, you can call it a cold, you can call it a virus. I don't think anybody knows actually what it is." And you have people sitting next to them go, "Yeah, we do.
We know what it is.
We do." We know,
flu. It's a virus.
They know the proteins in it. They've actually mapped it out. They know exactly what it looks like. They know the binding sites. They know the RNA in the center. They've got it all mapped out. They know exactly what the hell it is. But
Brian Stevens says,
"Well, I'm not a
please
scientist,
correct.
but I think we should look into disaffecting injections." And people just look at him like.
Brian Stevens says. Brian
But
Stevens
anyways,
says Trump told us he was being sarcastic, and I trust Mr. President Trump.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm going to be SJ. Just to let people know, I'm on SJ Thomason in about an hour, so I do have to get
what
going.
What the fuck? You seriously? I told you that I was going live after this days ago. Did you actually schedule a stream on top of me?
What time are you going live?
5.
That's 3 o'clock. I'm going live now. It's in 2 hours. Oh, 5 Eastern.
That's 5 my time.
Oh, okay. Well, I can move my thing
fight
around.
you.
I mean, she's flexible. I'm flexible. You want me to move? You want me to ask SJ?
No, I don't care. You do whatever you want to do. I don't give a shit.
We just like stepping on you. We like keeping the women down. Got to keep the women
what
down.
happens every single time I go and set
White
some
privilege.
shit up. One of these
male
motherfuckers schedules on top of
Why
me.
don't you? Hey, Chess, don't you? Look, when I schedule something, I put it in Cortana scheduler, and Bullinator, we have the same Outlook thing. We share it, and so you get that bullet, right? Right? You get when I schedule something. Because I see your stuff
Steve, somewhere maybe. I don't know exactly. Like I have a Google Calendar where I put what I'm streaming for the most part. There's a couple things I need to add at this point. I need to put Pain of Progress from Steaming Cup of Reason on the shills. I need to put that on there, but that's a run and forget show anyway.
I'm going to be on SJ Thomas. We're going to be talking about Gumballs and God, my blog that I wrote. That Landon Kurt Knoll, literally one of the smartest guys on the planet, has reviewed and said the logic was fine. He is a mathematician. Again, this is not an appeal authority by which Steve is right because Landon says he's right. This is an appeal to an expert saying, hey, look, I have some logic here. Here's a person who's an expert in Boolean logic that said, yeah, you don't see no errors with it. If you think there's an error with it, hey, look. Show me, right? Demonstrate evidence, right? Evidence.
I love it when trolls pay us money. Divine Genocide for 2 said David is secondhand smoke dangerous. They're twisting something I said months ago.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So,
Divine. All right, just check it out. Wrap this up.
Yes. Okay. So,
Dave gets last word.
We've got David's links in the chat and also in the description. Steve is going live with SJ in an hour or so. I am going live in an hour. I've got 3 people coming in. I've got Unholy Roast, Dapper Dinosaur, and I have got Sick Gibbons, which is Erica. So if you guys want to come and check that out, we're working on something that I'm probably going to call crossover, where we pull in people from like just different things, probably smaller YouTubers, and we're going to be talking about 100 questions for atheists. I'm going to give you a heads up. My favorite question is, why do you hate Jesus?
and I'm going to give Dave the last word here, but I have the same question. What would you ask? Dave, you don't know, I'm doing a new show from West Covina Studios with Reasons to Believe. You're familiar with that organization, Dr. Hugh Ross, Dr. Fazerado. So I'm doing a new show with them. They're actually designing a set. It's a whole production. I disagree with Hugh on a few things. I disagree with Fuzz. They want to make a show out of it because they like my argument. They like the way I've handled these discussions, and they're real big fans of the show. So we're doing a new thing from Reasons to Believe. As a non-believer and a believer, we're going to have a comparison of like world views and positions. And next question is going to be asked too. What would you ask a Christian or a non-believer? So Cheshire, I'm going to have to watch that and kind of glean some stuff out of that. But Dave, take us out. What do you got for us? Give us the last word. And by the way, thanks again for coming in, dude. I'm not just blowing smoke up your ass. I enjoy having conversations with you, which is surprising because I never thought I was going to like you because I just didn't agree with you for a long time.
Well, that's the thing, Steve. We can like each other and disagree. And I built so much of my activism was about unity despite differences, and that's gone so far out of vogue now. Unity despite differences is derided as a horrible thing right now, and it is the only way we're going to win. It's the only way we're going to achieve what we all want to achieve. We all have common goals. We all have common objectives, and we can't get those objectives if we can't disagree calmly and civilly and work together, even with religious people with whom we really disagree on something. This world is in such a chaotic place right now, and I would like to just remind everybody that humanism is good, caring is good, and working across the aisle with people that you don't agree with is good. And people that disagree with you, even fervently, are not bad people. They're just wrong, or maybe you are. And I hope that discussions like this, and I have discussions like this and cats like that with waggy tails.
We love animals.
You know,
that's something we all. That's we all love animals. Gotta love animals around here.
You gotta love animals. Let me see. Oh, he's a dog. Oh, he's adorable.
There you go, Bubber.
I love dogs. I'm totally a dog guy.
No, rejected.
And thanks, Dave. I appreciate it very much. Hopefully, maybe
thank
if
you
you
all.
want me or Josh and I
me
ever
on.
to come on your channel, we'd be thrilled to go on your channel one of these days.
I cannot wait to have you
back
back again at some point. That'd be
I'd love
fantastic. Keep in touch. We clearly have a lot to talk about with systemic racism and probably that patriarchy.
The patriarchy.
The patriarchy.
All right.
Have a great weekend.
All right,
Stay
guys.
safe, and we'll talk to you all soon.
You too. Stay home.
Bye-bye.
Take us out.
Stay home.